Hi there, and welcome to our latest podcast episode. Today, we are exploring the increase in demand for the very best office space in London from occupiers of all sizes and across all sectors. Termed a flight to quality, it is a pattern that has been observed in London as well as most other office markets globally for several years following the pandemic. As businesses returned to the office, they opted for the best space they could afford to help make the commute worth it for those team members who had become accustomed to working from home and to attract the best talent. Whilst the leadership of several businesses were already strong advocates of in office work, not many could deny that a business could be run, at least at some level, with many staff working remotely or on a hybrid working basis. But many also realised that if they were going to have an office, it should be treated as a cost item that is required to perform and create a return on investment. So many businesses opted for the best space that they could afford. The best office space also happened to have the highest environmental, social, and governance, or ESG, credentials, which subsequently aligned with the increased desire and indeed necessity for businesses to be seen as ethical. The post pandemic return to the office in London. In early 2026, a study by office occupancy consulting firm Remit found that average UK office attendance was settling at the highest level since before the pandemic, with attendance figures above 40% every week since early January. The report stated that office attendance was no longer in freefall nor in recovery mode. It was settling, and employees were more open to being in the office, but only where it felt purposeful and workable. Laura Landells, a partner at Remit and a co-author of the report, stated, "The question is no longer whether people will return to the office, but what kind of office experience genuinely supports the way people now work. As expectations stabilize, the quality, functionality, and clarity of workplace design are set to play an increasingly decisive role in driving attendance." The study helped explain the market trend of increased appetite for high caliber office space. The increased demand was creating competition for the best space, also termed the fight for quality. However, the increased demand coincided with the increased pressures that developers were facing. The effect of the flight to quality on London's prime office rental and vacancy levels. The composition furthered the supply shortage, extremely low vacancy rates, and upward pressure on prime office rentals in London. Central London's overall office vacancy rate in the first quarter of 2026 hovered between 6.3% and 7%, depending on exact location or submarket. However, prime grade A space vacancy hovered between 1.4% and 2.9%. Prime core City of London office tower vacancies were below 1%, and in the core West End submarkets of Mayfair and St James's, the prime grade A office vacancy rates were around 4%. By the end of Q4 2025, prime headline rents in the City of London were at a level 5% higher than they were in Q4 2024. Prime headline rents in the West End at the end of Q4 2025 increased for the sixth consecutive quarter. In the same quarter, prime office rents in Canary Wharf and Docklands were at £57.50 per square foot. In King's Cross and Euston, £95 per square foot. In Midtown, best in class space was achieving £85 per square foot, and record headline rents were observed across all other submarkets, including Knightsbridge in Chelsea, Paddington, and Victoria. In the first quarter of 2026, the FT reported that prime City of London office rents were closing the gap on those in the West End, reaching an average of £130.80 per square foot compared to £165 per square foot in the West End, which traditionally is the most expensive location in which to rent office space in London. How is quality measured in the London office market? In London and throughout the UK, office space is graded, with Grade A space being deemed the best. This is sometimes also referred to as prime office space, particularly if the space is deemed the best of Grade A and the space is most likely to achieve headline rents in a given market. How is a Grade A office space in London defined? Grade A office space is in the highest quality office building, and this can either be a brand new or a recently refurbished building. The buildings must offer modern infrastructure and the best amenity levels and be in the most sought after locations. So in the city, this would be the city core, and in the West End, this would be Mayfair and St James's, for instance. Grade A and prime office buildings often set benchmarks for design and performance and will offer excellent accessibility. The buildings will be described as high specification with state-of-the-art mechanical and electrical or M&E equipment such as high-speed lifts. They would incorporate high levels of design, the use of superior materials, and there would be ultra-modern connectivity throughout the building. The buildings will also feature modern heating, ventilation, and air conditioning or HVAC systems for improved comfort, efficacy, and efficiency. The office suites will feature generous floor to ceiling heights, large windows, and efficient and flexible floor plates that both maximize natural daylight and allow for a wide range of fit outs for different occupier requirements. Grade B office space is space that appeals to those occupiers seeking a balance between quality and cost, and those willing to compromise on elements such as location or amenities. Grade B will often be a second-hand space and will often require further capital expenditure for optimization. The floor plates will be smaller and inefficient, limiting variety in fit-out options. Grade C office space is rare in central London. This form of space will be in secondary locations. It will be functional and possibly suitable for back office tasks. And overall comfort, efficiency, and flexibility is limited in this caliber of space. What is ESG considered space? The above describes how Grade A, Grade B, and Grade C space were differentiated traditionally. All of the above still apply, however, today environmental, social, and governance factors are also utilised in the grading system, without exception. The discussion about sustainability in the office space sector began in earnest in the mid 2000s. However, due to the financial crisis of 2008, the conversation and the movement towards considering the environment in the sector lost some momentum. The world then experienced the pandemic, and again, momentum was lost. However, the wider conversation about protecting the environment continued to grow. As the world began to return to the office following the pandemic, the commercial real estate sector was reminded by the London Climate Ready Partnership, amongst many other bodies globally, that the built environment has a significant impact on the natural world. Globally, it accounts for 40 to 50% of natural resource use, 20% of water use, 30 to 40% of energy use, and around a third of CO2 emissions. Developers and landlords could no longer offer space that was not environmentally friendly. In fact, both planning permission and financing were dependent on the space having good ESG credentials. For businesses, occupying office space with good ESG metrics is no longer an optional nice to have. It is also critical for business reputation. A Grade A office building will now be energy efficient in that it utilizes some form of renewable energy, and it will have been built or refurbished using methods that minimize carbon. The building will offer sustainable features such as end of journey facilities, including electric vehicle chargers, showers, lockers, and changing facilities, cycle storage, and in some cases, cycle workshops to encourage environmentally friendly means of commuting. The building will also typically feature shared amenities such as on site cafes, gyms, yoga studios, communal lounges, and terraces. Grade B and Grade C space will have little or no ESG credentials. How are the ESG credentials of an office building measured? Whilst certain attributes of a building could be measured in a subjective way, ESG credentials are measured objectively. The features that pertain to sustainability and the wider ESG credentials are evaluated by a number of metrics. The Energy Performance Certificate, or EPC, is based on carbon emission rates rather than simply energy demands and is graded from A to E, with A being the best rating. A good EPC is no longer a preference for occupiers, it is also a legal requirement. The Minimum Energy Efficiency Standards, or MEES, regulations changed on the 1st of April 2023, requiring existing office properties to have an EPC rating of E or above. In June 2026, the UK government advised that from 2031, all office buildings above 1,000 square metres or 10,764 square feet must achieve a minimum standard EPC rating of B. BREEAM stands for the Building Research Establishment Environmental Assessment Method and was created by the UK-based Building Research Establishment, or BRE, in 1990. It evaluates the sustainability performance of buildings and has become so trusted that it is often a condition for planning permission. Following a BREEAM assessment, a building can be rated as outstanding, representing exceptional performance and the top 1% of UK buildings. Excellent represents advanced sustainability and is most common for premium office and public sector schemes. And very good represents strong practices and is a common minimum requirement for planning permission. A good rating reflects above average environmental performance, and a pass means that the building has met baseline sustainability criteria. In August 2026, 156 office buildings in London had achieved outstanding certification, and 727 had achieved excellent certification. LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design and is a rating system for commercial properties that evaluates a building's sustainability across energy efficiency, water use, indoor air quality, and materials. It is administered by the US Green Building Council, or USGBC, and is globally recognised and often used for office space in London, particularly for space that will attract US occupiers. LEED has 4 distinct certification tiers and is based on a scoring system with a maximum of 110 points. Platinum represents 80 points or above, gold 60 to 79 points, silver 50 to 59 points, and certified is 40 to 49 points. NABERS is the National Australian Built Environment Rating System, which evaluates a building's environmental performance on a 6-star scale, with 6 being the best rating. Although not a replacement for EPCs, this rating system has gained traction in UK office developments due to its superior accuracy compared to traditional EPCs. The UK Green Building Council, or UKGBC, does not provide a commercial certification itself. However, it provides the Net Zero Carbon, or NZC, Buildings Framework Definition and the Whole Life Carbon Framework, which act as the industry methodologies for the rating of built assets, including office buildings. The framework splits building ratings into 2 distinct criteria: the net zero operational carbon, which focuses on the energy consumed by the building in use, and the net zero embodied carbon, which focuses on the greenhouse gas emissions associated with the materials, construction, and eventual demolition of the building. The WELL rating system is focused on how an office building affects the health and well-being of its occupiers. It is administered by the International Well Building Institute, or IWBI. It scores office buildings on a scale of platinum, gold, silver, or bronze by evaluating what falls into the categories of air, water, nourishment, light, movement, thermal comfort, acoustics, materials, and mind. How is the London office market coping with the increased demand for new space together with constrained supply? Offices that rate very highly on the above metrics would be deemed London's best-in-class space and are the most sought after. And with the struggles developers have faced in recent years, there is an unprecedented shortage, as represented by the earlier mentioned vacancy rates and increasing rental levels. Due to the various pressures that developers are under in delivering enough brand new space to keep up with demand, landlords and property managers are increasingly creating Grade A space with excellent ESG credentials from existing stock via refurbishment projects. Examples of these include JP Morgan Asset Management's refurbishment of the 400,000 square foot 65 Gresham Street in the city. The scheme avoided demolition through large-scale reuse and regeneration practices and will create an all-electric office building targeting a 66% whole life carbon reduction. The project is due to be completed in 2028. In 2025, it was reported that global investment manager SquarePoint had agreed terms to pre-let the entire building, highlighting the demand for ESG considered space, new or existing. Another is GPE's treatment of an existing 1980s building, Minerva House, to create 143,100 square feet of sustainable Grade A space at the Delft in London Bridge. 70% of the existing structure was retained and 30 tonnes of glass were recovered from the project for reuse in other projects across the capital. Notably, the Delft was the first office scheme in London to use river barges to transport building materials and waste, thereby reducing over 600 HGV journeys. The Delft is planned for completion in spring 2027, and in February 2026, GPE secured a 52,293 square foot lease with AI software company Quantexa, leaving it 38% pre-let. How the flexible workspace market is providing ESG considered space. Due to the constrained supply of prime and Grade A leased space, many occupiers are increasingly turning to the flexible workspace market for their business space solutions. It was reported by Savills that there were 83,000 managed office leads in London in 2025, which was a 23% increase on 2024's figure and a 65% increase on 2023's. Managed office providers offer office space that has been fitted out with a high level of customization for the occupier. This prepared form of space is sometimes known as Class B space. However, this should not be confused with Grade B space, with the class referring to how it is handed over to the occupier, and this fitted space is available within Grade A office buildings with excellent ESG credentials. This type of space is also referred to as branded managed space, fitted and furnished space, plug and play offices, turnkey space, and ready fitted, furnished, and connected office space. These spaces are fully equipped and ready to use from day one, and the managed office provider or operator, and in some cases the landlord, manages the space on the occupier's behalf, taking care of property and facilities management and charging an all-inclusive rental or license fee. This option has become increasingly popular with occupiers of all sizes and across all sectors because they can create a completely bespoke fit out, specify amenity and infrastructure elements such as secure IT systems, and customize the service level pack. Private serviced offices are also offered in prime Grade A office buildings with excellent ESG credentials. So, in 2026, the definition of exceptional office space in London remains broadly the same as it always has done. Exceptional space would most often be provided within a building that has been classified as Grade A or prime. However, what constitutes Grade A and prime office space has changed. Sustainability and other factors that earn a property strong ESG credentials are no longer nice to haves, they are non-negotiables. not only for the sake of being seen as an ethical business by clients, customers, and shareholders, but also because of industry and legal requirements. What makes an office truly exceptional to an occupier can still be somewhat subjective and can be down to many factors, whether it be the precise location, the architecture, the level of amenity within the building, the level of client service, or the flexibility of the occupational agreement. However, exceptional office space is now, at the very least, ESG considered space.